Forget everything you have been told. Forget the textbooks. Forget the pharaohs. Look at the object itself. It sits on the edge of the desert like a mountain that decided to become geometry. It is the most studied structure on Earth, yet it remains the most silent. We call it a tomb. But a tomb is a house for the dead. This is a machine. It contains 2.3 million blocks of stone. Some weigh as much as a herd of elephants. They are stacked with such precision that you cannot slip a credit card between them. It is not just a pile of rocks. It is a 6 million ton message left by a civilization that knew something we have forgotten. Originally, it did not look like the rough steps we see today. It was encased in highly polished white limestone. It was smooth. It was blindingly bright. Under the Egyptian sun, it would have shone like a second star, visible from space. It wasn't designed to hide. It was designed to broadcast. Who builds a tomb that acts like a beacon? Who polishes 20 acres of stone to the flatness of an optical lens? This level of finish is not needed to protect a corpse. It suggests a function, a purpose. Like the heat shield of a spacecraft or the lens of a telescope, the form follows the function. Here is a secret visible only from the air at the equinox. The Great Pyramid does not have 4 sides, it has 8. Each face is slightly concave, indented down the middle. This creates a shadow play that marks the solstices and equinoxes with the precision of a Swiss watch. To achieve this, the builders had to account for the curvature of the Earth. They needed knowledge of planetary geometry that supposedly didn't exist for another 3,000 years. This is not architecture. This is geodesy written in stone. It is a mathematical equation solidified into a mountain. Then there is the granite. The inner chambers are made of red granite, transported from Aswan 500 miles away. Granite is one of the hardest substances on Earth. It contains quartz crystals. To cut it today, we use diamond-tipped saws and hydraulic pressure. We are told the ancients used copper chisels and stone hammers. Try to cut granite with copper, you will lose. The copper is too soft, yet the cuts in the pyramid are smooth. They show feed rates, the speed of the drill, that match modern machinery. The tool marks left behind tell a story of high-speed rotation and immense pressure. We are looking at the fingerprints of a lost technology. Inside the king's chamber, there is a box. We call it a sarcophagus, but it is too small for a human body with coffins. It is made of a single block of chocolate-colored granite. It was hollowed out with a tubular drill, and it rings. If you strike it, it resonates like a bell. Engineers have found that the dimensions of the chamber create a specific acoustic frequency. It amplifies sound. Why would a dead king need acoustics? Why tune a burial chamber to a specific musical note? Unless it wasn't for a body at all. Unless the sarcophagus was a component in a larger resonance engine. Look up. The placement of the 3 Giza pyramids is not random. They perfectly mirror the 3 stars of Orion's belt, but not as they look today. As they looked in 10,500 BC, the Orion correlation theory suggests that the site is a gigantic sky map, frozen in time. It marks a specific date in the precession of the equinoxes. It points to a time known as the Younger Dryas, a time of cataclysm and rebirth. Is the pyramid a tomb for a king or a clock for the planet? A marker saying, "We were here and we knew the stars"? The location itself is impossible. The Great Pyramid sits at the geographical center of the Earth's landmass. It is aligned to true north with an accuracy of 3/60ths of a degree. This is more accurate than the Meridian building in London. To place it here, you would need to have mapped the entire planet. You would need to know the size of the Earth, the distribution of the continents, and the exact axis of rotation. We are supposed to believe this was done by a civilization that had just invented the wheel. Walk through the Grand Gallery. It feels less like a hallway and more like a machine part. The walls are corbelled, stepping inwards. There are slots along the sides, as if they once held massive gears or dampeners. It doesn't look ceremonial. It looks industrial. There are no hieroglyphs inside the Great Pyramid. No, this belongs to Khufu. No prayers for the afterlife. Just clean, cold, functional stone. The walls are bare. The silence is absolute. It is the silence of a power plant after the switch has been turned off. Granite has a unique property, piezoelectricity. When you squeeze quartz crystals, they generate an electrical charge. The pyramid contains thousands of tons of granite, pressing down on itself. The weight of the structure is the battery. Is it possible that the pyramid was a geomechanical power plant, harnessing the vibrations of the earth, channeling them through the granite, and focusing them into the sky? It sounds like science fiction, but Tesla experimented with the same principles thousands of years later. We are staring at an artifact that defies our timeline. It is too big, too precise, and too silent. If it is a tomb, it is an arrogant waste of resources. If it is a machine, it is the greatest discovery in human history, waiting to be turned back on. The stone is not dead, it is waiting. Like a dormant volcano or a computer in sleep mode, the potential energy is trapped inside the mass. To wake it up, you don't need a key. You need the right frequency. Sound is not just something you hear. It is a physical force. It is pressure. With enough volume, sound can shatter glass. With the right frequency, it can levitate stones. We call this acoustic levitation. In controlled labs today, we use sound waves to float water droplets and small bees. Ancient legends speak of this too. From the walls of Jericho falling to trumpets, to the Tibetan monks who allegedly lifted heavy boulders with drums and horns. Could the Egyptians have known this? Could the massive blocks of the pyramid have been moved not by whips and slaves, but by sound? It sounds like magic, but magic is just science we don't understand yet. If you find the resonant frequency of an object, you can manipulate it. The Great Pyramid is built to resonate. It is a stone instrument. When tourists hum inside the king's chamber, they report a strange feeling. The sound doesn't just echo, it amplifies. It enters the body. The chest vibrates. The spine tingles. The room sings back to you. It was tuned to the key of F sharp. Why tune a tomb? The king's chamber is designed with the acoustic precision of a modern concert hall, but far more durable. The dimensions are perfect for creating standing waves. This is when a sound wave bounces back and overlaps with itself, doubling its power. This is not accidental. The granite beams above the chamber weighing 70 tons each are tuned. They are rough-hewn on top, like tuning forks waiting to be struck. They are not structural. They are functional. They are the resonators of the machine. We return to the granite. Granite is filled with quartz. Quartz is piezoelectric. When you vibrate quartz, it produces electricity. If you fill the king's chamber with the right sound frequency, the granite walls would begin to generate an electromagnetic field. Imagine the entire pyramid vibrating. Millions of tons of granite stressing the quartz crystals. The structure becomes a massive transducer, converting the mechanical energy of sound vibration into electrical energy. The pyramid wasn't just a pile of rocks. It was a battery powered by the earth itself. But where does the vibration come from? You need a source. Deep beneath the pyramid lies the subterranean chamber. It is rough, unfinished, and strange, but it sits right above the water table. The Nile River once flowed much closer to the plateau. Water flowing through underground aquifers creates a pulse, a heartbeat. We call it seismic noise. The pyramid is coupled to the bedrock. It acts like a giant ear, picking up the pulse of the earth, amplifying it through the layers of limestone and focusing it into the granite core. Then there is the Grand Gallery, a steeply rising corridor with corbelled walls. Critics say it was for hauling blocks, but engineers look at it and see a Helmholtz resonator. The slots in the walls could have held dampeners or crystals to tune the frequency coming from below. It looks like a waveguide, a channel designed to direct energy sound or microwave upwards into the king's chamber. It is the spine of the machine, connecting the pulse of the earth to the crystal heart of the structure. Nikola Tesla was obsessed with the pyramids. He believed they were transmitters. When he built his Wardenclyffe Tower to send wireless energy around the world, he used the same principles: the earth as a conductor and a high-voltage standing wave. Tesla claimed he could split the earth with a small mechanical oscillator if he found the right frequency. Perhaps the builders of Giza beat him to it by 10,000 years. They didn't use copper wires. They used the planet itself. Resonance is powerful. It can destroy bridges. It can shatter glass, but controlled resonance can be a tool. If the pyramid concentrated this energy, what was it used for? Healing, communication, or was it a weapon? Some theories suggest the Ark of the Covenant was the file component, a capacitor placed in the granite box, the sarcophagus, to collect this charge. When Moses took the Ark, he didn't steal a religious icon. He stole the spark plug of the power plant. The capstone is missing. The pyramidion legend says it was made of gold or electrum. If the pyramid is a machine, the capstone was the antenna. Without it, the machine is incomplete. It is a gun without a barrel, a radio without a transmitter. Maybe it was removed on purpose, to turn the machine off, to stop the resonance before it shook the world apart. Or maybe it was stolen, leaving the rest of the structure as a useless mountain of stone. Today, the machine is silent. The Nile has moved. The crystals are quiet, but the geometry remains, the math remains. And math is a universal language. It does not decay. We are like children playing in the ruins of a nuclear power plant, thinking the cooling towers are temples to a cloud god. We have forgotten the science, but the stone remembers. And if you listen closely, in the dead of night, you might still hear the echo. If the pyramid is a machine, mathematics is its software. You don't build a structure with millions of tons of stone just to bury a king. You build it to preserve data. The Great Pyramid is a library of constants, written in a language that transcends culture, geometry. It is the ultimate time capsule, a book written in stone that can survive a flood, an ice age, or a nuclear war. As long as the structure stands, the knowledge embedded in its dimensions survives. What knowledge was worth this much effort? The first lesson is fundamental geometry. Take the perimeter of the pyramid's base and divide it by twice its height. You get 3.14 pi, the universal constant defining a circle. They squared the circle in stone millennia before the Greeks defined it. It also encodes phi, the golden ratio, 1.618, the ratio found in everything from seashells to galaxies, to the proportions of the human body. The builders weren't just stacking rocks. They were demonstrating that they understood the fundamental blueprint of nature itself. But those are just basics. Here is the coincidence that keeps scientists awake at night. The latitude coordinate of the Great Pyramid is 29.9792458 degrees north. The speed of light in a vacuum is 299,792,458 meters per second. The numbers match digit for digit. Skeptics call it a coincidence, but what are the odds? To place that massive structure on that exact line of latitude requires global mapping technology. To know the speed of light requires advanced physics. Are we looking at a deliberate beacon saying, "We knew C"? Critics argue they didn't use meters. The meter is a modern invention, but the meter is defined as a fraction of the Earth's circumference. If the ancients knew the exact size of the Earth, they would derive the same units. The unit used to build the pyramid, the royal cubit, is incredibly precise. It is exactly 1/10,000,000 of the polar radius of the Earth. The measuring stick they used was based on the planet itself. The pyramid is a scale model of the Earth's northern hemisphere, projecting the curved globe onto flat surfaces. The data gets deeper. The dimensions of the pyramid also encode time. Specifically, the Great Year. The Earth wobbles on its axis like a dying top. One full wobble takes 25,920 years. This is the precession of the equinoxes. The base perimeter of the pyramid times 43,200 equals the equatorial circumference of the Earth. The height times 43,200 equals the polar radius. Why 43,200? It is exactly 1/600th of the Great Year. The pyramid is a geodetic clock tuned to the slowest cycle of our planet. Why encode all this math? Because mathematics is the only universal language. If you want to send a message to the future, you don't use English or hieroglyphs. Languages die. Cultures forget. But pi is always pi. The speed of light never changes. Any intelligent species that finds this structure, human or otherwise, 1,000 or 1,000,000 years from now, will recognize these constants. They will measure the pyramid and realize this was built by a civilization that knew the size of their planet, the cycles of their stars, and the speed of light. The precision required to encode these numbers is staggering. The base of the pyramid is leveled to within 7/8 of an inch over 13 acres. Modern construction struggles to match that tolerance. They weren't just building big. They were building microscopically precise on a macroscopic scale. Every corner, every angle, every chamber dimension is a data point. We are likely only scratching the surface of the information stored here. It is a stone hard drive, and we have only just figured out how to plug it in. We return to the alignment, true north. To align a structure this big to within 3/60ths of a degree of true north, without a compass, which points to magnetic north, requires tracking stars over decades. It requires an understanding of celestial mechanics that historians say they didn't have. Why do you need that accuracy for a dead pharaoh? You don't. You need that accuracy if you are calibrating a planetary instrument. If the pyramid is meant to interact with the Earth's energies or track long-term celestial cycles, the alignment must be perfect. Even the empty box in the king's chamber is mathematical. The volume of the exterior of the granite coffer is exactly twice the volume of the interior. It is a standard of measurement, a reference block for volume, density, and temperature. It's not a coffin. It's the calibration unit for the entire machine. It sits at the focal point of the structure, encoding the fundamental units of measurement for the civilization that built it. We are left with an uncomfortable truth. The people who built this were not primitive. In some ways, their understanding of the Earth's geometry and cycles matched or exceeded our own until the satellite era. The stone computer proves that a high civilization existed in prehistory. They didn't leave behind plastic or electronics. They left behind a mountain of math that cannot be erased. They left a message that says, "We were here, and we knew." To understand the machine, we must add the final element, water. Today, the Nile is miles away. But geological surveys confirm that in 2500 BC, a branch of the Nile flowed right up to the edge of the Giza Plateau. The pyramid was not built in the middle of a desert. It was built on the banks of a massive river system. It had a harbor. It had causeways. The entire complex was plumbed into the water table like a giant industrial radiator. Why bring the water to the stone? Conventional history says it was to transport the blocks on barges. But the design of the subterranean levels suggests a different purpose. There are tunnels deep beneath the pyramid that look less like tombs and more like aqueducts. If you fill these chambers with water, the acoustic properties change completely. The pyramid begins to couple with the river's energy, turning the bedrock into a vibrating membrane. Descend into the subterranean chamber. It is the deepest part of the structure. It looks chaotic, rough-hewn bedrock, strange pits, and a fin-like ridge of stone. Archaeologists call it unfinished. They say the workers just stopped digging. But in engineering, rough surfaces are used to create turbulence. If water rushes into this chamber, you don't want smooth flow. You want a vortex. You want cavitation to generate a massive hydraulic pulse. This is the theory of the hydraulic ram pump. It is a technology we use today to pump water without electricity, using only the pressure of the water itself. It works by creating a shockwave, a water hammer. If the pyramid was a pump, the subterranean chamber wasn't a mistake. It was the combustion chamber. The roughness was designed to break the flow and create a rhythmic, pounding heartbeat that shook the entire structure from below. There is physical evidence left behind. When explorers first entered the Queen's chamber and the lower passages, they found them covered in a thick layer of salt, up to an inch thick. This is not normal for a dry tomb. This specific type of salt deposition happens when mineral-rich water recedes and evaporates over time. The stones were submerged. For centuries, the lower parts of the Great Pyramid were flooded. Critics say this was from groundwater flooding in later. But the chemistry of the salt suggests a long-term cyclical exposure. The walls of the so-called Queen's Chamber are encrusted with the residue of a chemical reaction or the remnants of a fluid that was meant to be there. The tomb theory cannot explain the salt. The machine theory requires it. Imagine the mechanism. Water from the Nile flows into the subterranean moat. It builds pressure. It rushes into the lower chamber. A check valve closes. Bam! The water stops instantly. This creates a water hammer, a shock wave that travels back up through the stone at the speed of sound. This shock wave hits the granite core. This is the heartbeat of the stone computer. It isn't powered by coal or uranium. It is powered by the kinetic energy of the Nile, a renewable, eternal engine. Every pulse sends a vibration up to the Grand Gallery, into the King's Chamber, squeezing the quartz crystals we discussed earlier. The river provides the motion. The granite provides the electricity. There is a mysterious vertical tunnel called the well shaft that connects the bottom chambers to the upper gallery. For years, it was thought to be a grave robber's tunnel. But it is too precise. In a hydraulic system, this would be the relief valve. It allows the air to escape as the water rushes in, preventing the system from locking up. Without this shaft, the pump would stall. Its existence is the smoking gun of the hydraulic theory. It connects the combustion of the water below to the resonance of the air above. It creates a breathable cycle for the machine. Intake, compression, pulse, release. A respiratory system made of limestone, breathing the water of the Nile. If the pyramid was pumping water, where did it go? The air shafts in the king's and queen's chambers might not be for star alignment, but for fluids. Modern analysis shows they were originally sealed at the ends. Why build a ventilation shaft that is sealed? Unless they were fluid conduits. Some engineers propose they were used to spray a fine mist of water into the chambers to cool the system, or to facilitate a chemical reaction, or perhaps to vent the pressure. We see similar designs in modern cooling towers. The pyramid might have been venting steam or ionized gas into the atmosphere, creating a column of conductive air above the plateau. A working hydraulic ram pump is loud. It produces a rhythmic thumping sound. Thump, thump, thump. If the Great Pyramid was active, you would have felt it before you saw it. The ground for miles around would have hummed with a low-frequency vibration. It was not a silent monument. It was a living beast. This low-frequency infrasound has strange effects on the human brain. It can induce trance states. It can create feelings of awe or terror. Perhaps the temple aspect was secondary. The initiates would come to the plateau to feel the pulse of the gods, unaware they were standing on top of a geological power plant. So why did it stop? A machine with moving parts breaks. But a machine with no moving parts, only water and sound, should last forever. The answer lies in the climate. The Nile moved. Around 3000 BC, the climate of Egypt changed drastically. The lush savanna turned into the Sahara Desert. The branch of the Nile that fed the Giza Plateau dried up. The water table dropped, the fuel line was cut. Without the water pressure, the hydraulic ram stopped, the heartbeat faded. The quartz stopped vibrating. The lights, if there were any, went out. The stone computer crashed, not because of a software bug, but because it ran out of power. There is evidence of a catastrophic failure inside. The massive granite beams in the king's chamber are cracked. Archaeologists say this happened during an earthquake, but the cracks are consistent with an internal explosion of pressure. If the water hammer effect became too strong, or if the relief valve blocked, the pressure wave could have exceeded the tolerance of the granite. The machine might have blown a fuse. The cracks we see today are the scars of a system overload, a meltdown in the Neolithic age. Once the water was gone, the purpose was lost. The later Egyptians found these silent giants and didn't know how to turn them on. They repurposed them. They buried their pharaohs nearby, hoping to absorb the residual magic. They wrote prayers on the walls of later pyramids, trying to mimic the power with words. But the Great Pyramid remained bare, a mute witness to a lost science. The water receded, the sand moved in, and the machine became a tomb. Not a tomb for a king, but a tomb for a technology that we are only just beginning to understand. We have looked at the how, now we must ask the why. Why would a civilization spend decades, perhaps centuries, cutting millions of tons of stone to build a machine they wouldn't even live to see finished? You don't build a bunker unless you are expecting a war. You don't build an ark unless you are expecting a flood. The Great Pyramid is an act of desperation. It is a survivalist project on a planetary scale. The builders were not looking at the stars to predict the harvest. They were looking for a bullet. They knew something about the cycles of our solar system that we have forgotten. They built the pyramids not as a tribute to their gods, but as a shield against their demons. The date encoded in the pyramid's alignment, 10,500 BC, is not a random birthday. It points to the younger Dryas. This was a time of apocalypse. The Earth was hit by a comet fragment. The temperature spiked. The ice caps melted instantly. Global sea levels rose by 400 feet. It was the great flood of legend, recorded in every culture from the Bible to Gilgamesh. Imagine a civilization as advanced as ours, wiped out in a single day. The coastal cities drown. The power grid fails. The libraries burn. Humanity is reduced to scattered tribes of hunter-gatherers, suffering from collective amnesia. The Great Pyramid is the artifact that survived the reboot. If you know the end is coming, what do? You cannot save the people. There are too many. You cannot save the books. Paper rots. You cannot save the hard drives. Magnetism fades. You need a format that is fireproof, waterproof, and earthquake-proof. You need geology. You write your knowledge into the mountains themselves. The shape of the pyramid is the most stable structure in the universe. You can knock over a skyscraper. You can crush a dome, but you cannot knock over a pyramid. It is already down. It is designed to survive a mega tsunami. It is designed to survive a pole shift. It is the ultimate black box for the human race. The evidence is carved into the Sphinx. Geologists have pointed out that the erosion on the Sphinx's body was caused by thousands of years of heavy rainfall. But it hasn't rained heavily in Giza for 5,000 years. This means the Sphinx was there before the desert. It was there during the wet age. It sat through the cataclysm, watching the rain wash away the world. The head was recarved later by the pharaohs, which is why it looks too small for the body. But the body tells the true age. It is a survivor of the first time Zep Tepi, a silent guardian that saw the sky fall and the waters rise, and waited for the mud to dry. The pyramid is a clock. By encoding the cycle of precession, the 26,000-year wobble, it tells us when the disaster happened. But a clock doesn't just tell the past. It predicts the future. Cycles repeat. If the comets come every 13,000 years, then the pyramid is not just a memorial. It is a warning. It stands there shouting, "It happened here." It happens in cycles. Get ready. We are looking at a calendar that counts down to the next reset. We think we are the masters of the earth, but the pyramid reminds us that we are just guests between catastrophes. We pride ourselves on our knowledge. But if the power goes out tomorrow, how long does our wisdom last? How long until we forget how to make antibiotics? How long until we forget the shape of the earth? The builders knew that civilization is fragile. They encoded the radius of the earth and the speed of light into the stone so that the survivors wouldn't have to rediscover it from scratch. It is a restart kit. If you understand the math of the pyramid, you can rebuild navigation. You can rebuild cartography. You can rebuild physics. It is a standard of weights and measures left on the table for the children who survived the fire. Astronomers today track the Taurid meteor stream. We pass through it twice a year. It contains debris from the comet that likely caused the younger Dryas. Every June and November, we roll the dice. The builders saw this stream as a cosmic shotgun pointed at Earth. They aligned the air shafts to the stars associated with death and rebirth, Orion and Sirius. They were obsessed with the sky because the sky is where the death comes from. They weren't worshiping lights. They were tracking ballistic missiles. There is a theory that the pyramid has a more active function during a disaster. If the Earth's magnetic field collapses, a geomagnetic excursion, deadly cosmic radiation floods the surface. Granite is an insulator. The mass of the pyramid blocks radiation. The king's chamber might be the safest place on Earth during a solar storm. Was it a bunker for the genetic elite? A place to store seeds or DNA samples protected from the radiation? The sarcophagus might have been a gene bank, a Noah's Ark for biology, protected by 6 million tons of rock shielding. Giza is not alone. It is part of a global network. Teotihuacan in Mexico, Angkor Wat in Cambodia, Easter Island. They all use similar masonry. They all encode similar numbers. They all point to the stars. It looks like a coordinated global effort, a world grid built by a single parent civilization before they vanished. They tried to stabilize the planet, or perhaps they tried to stabilize the human mind. By building these impossible monuments, they ensured that no matter how dark the Dark Ages got, we would never completely forget that we were once great. They are anchors for human potential. Look at our cities. Steel rusts, glass breaks, concrete crumbles. In 5,000 years, New York will be dust. But the Great Pyramid will still be there. It will still point north. It will still represent Pi. It is the only thing we have built that is truly immortal. They warned us, they left us the tools, but we have forgotten how to read the manual. We treat the warning beacon as a tourist attraction. And while we take selfies, the clock of the heavens keeps ticking, inching closer to the alignment that brought them down. We are a species with amnesia. We woke up after the cataclysm, surrounded by the ruins of giants, and convinced ourselves that we built them. We invented stories about tombs and slaves to explain away the impossible engineering. But the stone does not care about our stories. The stone waits. It waits for us to grow up. It waits for us to remember the science. The Great Pyramid is an IQ test for humanity. As our technology improves, the pyramid seems to get smarter. When we discovered Pi, we found it in the stone. When we measured the earth, we found it in the stone. When we discovered the speed of light, we found it in the stone. It is a mirror. It reflects our own level of understanding back at us. What happens when we finally solve the puzzle? What happens if we put the capstone back? If the acoustic theory is correct, the pyramid is a dormant machine. It is currently switched off. The water is gone. The capstone is missing. The crystals are silent, but the mechanism is intact. It is a gun waiting for a bullet. It is a computer waiting for a boot disk. Perhaps the free energy that Tesla dreamed of was already achieved here. A wireless power grid that spanned the planet, fueled by the heartbeat of the Earth, providing clean energy to a civilization that lived in harmony with resonance. We are digging for coal while standing on top of a fusion reactor. Admitting the truth requires humility. It requires admitting that we are not the apex of history. We might be the survivors of a fall. The stone computer challenges the timeline of human evolution. It suggests that history is not a straight line from primitive to modern, but a cycle, a sine wave of rise and fall. The academic gatekeepers fight this idea. They protect the dogma of the primitive ancients, but the evidence is too loud to ignore. The tool marks the erosion, the precision, the alignments. The walls of the Giza Plateau are screaming a truth that our textbooks are afraid to print. If we accept the legacy, we accept the responsibility. The builders left us a blueprint. They showed us that it is possible to build in harmony with the planet, to align our works with the stars, to build for eternity, not for the next fiscal quarter. They played the long game. We are playing the short game. The pyramid stands as a challenge to our modern hubris. We build glass towers that will shatter in a storm. They built a mountain that shrugs off earthquakes. They understood something about the nature of reality, the relationship between sound, gravity, and consciousness that we have yet to rediscover. And the mystery is not over. In 2017, using wand detectors, scientists confirmed a massive void above the Grand Gallery. A hidden chamber as big as a passenger plane, sealed since the beginning. No entrance, no exit. Just empty space in the heart of the rock. What is inside? Is it the Hall of Records? Is it the missing piece of the machine? Or is it simply a resonance chamber, a cavity designed to tune the frequency of the structure? The pyramid has not given up all its secrets yet. It is holding the best card for last. The final revelation is still waiting in the dark. The climate will change again. The wheel of time turns. The Sahara will become green. The waters will return to Giza. When the Nile flows once more at the feet of the Sphinx, will the machine wake up? Will the salt dissolve? Will the pulse return? Perhaps it is designed to activate automatically. A planetary thermostat set to trigger when the conditions are right. Maybe we don't need to turn it on. Maybe it is waiting for the Earth itself to flip the switch. We are just the insects living on the casing of the engine. Until then, it stands as a sentinel, a watchman in the night. It has seen the rise and fall of pharaohs, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, and now, the modern West. It has seen us split the atom and walk on the moon, and it remains unimpressed. It knows that we are still fragile. It warns us that civilization is a thin veneer over chaos. It reminds us that the sky can fall, but it also offers hope. It proves that humans, or whatever built it, are capable of greatness. We are capable of touching the eternal. We have done it before. We can do it again. The stone computer is a message of resilience. It says, "We survived, you can too," but survival requires wisdom. It requires listening to the planet, not just exploiting it. It requires understanding the resonance of things. We must stop looking at it as a tomb of death and start looking at it as a monument to life. a testament to the power of the mind to conquer matter. It is the anchor that holds human history to the bedrock of truth. So the next time you see a picture of the Great Pyramid, do not see a pile of rocks. See a machine, see a library, see a warning. Listen to the silence. The message is there, vibrating in the granite, waiting for the day we finally learn how to listen. The computer is on standby. The signal is broadcasting. The only missing component is us.